I faintly remember this little game series called Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. It was this mascot platform I played the shit out of on the PS2, along with all the other 3D platformers from that generation when I was younger. Even though I spent many hours playing the games, I didn't really remember that much about the actual game part of the series at all. And so, I decided to do the smart thing and search for an ISO on Google to play the games again. And surprisingly enough, I ended up finding out that the first two games were actually re-released and remastered on Steam. So I pirated those games instead. Oh, this is one of those collect-a-thon games. Yeah, no, fuck this.
Yes, hello!
So the Ty series was developed originally by Chrome Studios, a game studio from Australia who, aside from Ty, made phenomenal games like Sunny Garcia Surfing, Blade Kitten, and even... And also... And they made fucking Jimmy Neutron Jet Fusion. I actually kinda like that last one. Needless to say, Chrome has been struggling a lot in the past couple of years trying to find any decent success, only surviving by making mobile games. So logically they decided to remaster the series on Steam to bank on the nostalgia, even if like only 2 people really ended up buying the games.
Now first we will need to open candy, and we will open candy simply with the classic way of using the knife.
Ty 2 opens up with this action-packed sequence where you and your buddies are in the middle of this battlefield, speeding on a jeep, riding mechs, and even having this big turret section. You then find out the reason why the team's all here is to stop the evil dudes from freeing Boss Cass, the big bad cock from the first game. Once reaching the prison, you meet up with what the fuck? Like, I get they were going for a sexy henchwoman character, but like, why would you sexualize this, and how could you sexualize this? I mean, you could have at least come with another reptile like a snake woman. I mean, who in the team thought you can make a fucking dinosaur hot? Anyways, your buddies get nearly killed, you save him, and Cass gets away scot-free. And after suffering that humiliating defeat, you head back to the base on the opening day of Bush Rescue. Bush Rescue is a little mom-and-pop organization dedicated to stop Boss Cass and his evil empire, and also help around the country with some boring shit as well, who gives a fuck. They also end up finding out that Cass decided to make his own country where he has diplomatic immunity because, plot. Here at the HQ, you meet up with the supporting cast of the game featuring characters like Girl-chan, Shadow the Hedgehog, Inventor Man, probably the only character from the series with 034, Dennis, and Cranky Cunt, also your hot mom. Once you're done with all the fucking tutorials and cutscenes, you're finally able to head out, and this is where the game properly starts.
Very simple, yes. And by this you can simply smell the delicious of ravioli.
So for Ty 2, Chrome decided that for a sequel, they needed to ditch the old formula and create something new from the ground up in order to truly move the franchise forward and to succeed. So they did the same shit as everyone else and went for a pseudo open world environment to fuck around and video game in. Collectibles are still a pretty sizable component of the game though. They're used in order to unlock usual stuff like better weapons, vehicles, and cheats. I actually did end up spending about an hour just fucking around looking for collectibles just in the first town. They somehow made collecting all the seemingly pointless items actually fun and interesting. And it's an aspect that many of the areas in the game really do excel at. The new open world structure is kinda disappointing though. Original Ty had these massive levels with lots of different paths and went all over the place, even if they were set up in a more linear fashion. Unfortunately, this ain't the same structure for Ty 2 though. The game still has these great looking big levels filled with all these side missions, but the way you travel through this in this open world environment is through these boring, unnecessary long roads. But hey, at least you have these downright broken kart racing minigames scattered across the map and some high-octane vehicle combat. Mission structures are pretty much what you expect. The main missions usually consist of you visiting these areas all over the world map in order to either retrieve an item or investigate a problem around the area. The team actually did put a lot of effort into these areas since you can always come back later on into the game and even discover new sections of the map when you're doing all the side missions. You get to explore areas like canyons, swamp, beaches, and inside fucking volcanoes. You know, all common places you visit in the Outback in real life. And apart from the main exploration stuff, there are also these vehicle sections that seem really fun and serve as a way to change the game's pacing a bit. The most prevalent ones being the helicopter missions, in which you have to retrieve certain items while dodging all the obstacles in the environment. Aside from that, you have the submarine sections, the thermal bungee sections for the hot areas, and the lifter sections which... combat in the game is as basic as it gets. You have 2 attempts to throw your boomerangs and a third attack that consists of you biting people's faces off in case you really fuck up. This leads to pretty much button mashing for every single conflict in the game, but it isn't really a problem since enemies only serve to be peggy banks in the game. Boomerangs serve a way bigger purpose in the secondary options, the upgrades. You can go visit your parents' shop over at your hometown to buy all kinds of boomerangs. They can range from elementals to hookshot rangs to totally OP rangs that can kill 6 enemies in a single row.
And you simply spin open the ravioli. It simply smells delicious. The smell of pure Italian meal.
There really ain't that much to talk about when it comes to the sound design in this game, unless you want to bring up byte_atk.ogg. Ah yes. And I mean, voice acting in the game is pretty alright. You have your occasional Brit Bong or American trying a bit too much to sound like an Australian person, but other than that it's pretty serviceable.
Hi, it's Steve Owen. Today, you're gonna see me tackle and buckfuck a crocodile in front of my wife in the Crocodile Hunter.
Also, I found out that Dennis, the frog guy, he was in the room. Dude, what the shit? At first I had high hopes for the OST, seeing as how the music was pretty much the only aspect that I could remember from the game after all these years. And was I right? I find myself kinda annoyed waiting for the actual music of the game to start playing instead of this generic, stock-sounding Australian didgeridoo shit. Like maybe, just maybe, they were finally gonna go all out during one of the more action-filled climactic moments of the game. But, no. Instead you have generic, digitally orchestrated orchestra music in its place. I wondered if I was just misremembering everything at this point, or maybe I just had really shit taste like literally every other fucking 6-year-old. There are some minor tracks I liked in the game. I saw myself tending to prefer the tracks that had more prominent use of electronic sounds as opposed to the usual acoustic tracks. I really liked the tracks like The Caverns, or maybe The Grindstone Cowboy.
This shit makes me come. Nigga.
It's a fucking shitty ass names, Jesus Christ. That doesn't mean that the other organic, more Aussie style songs are bad. They're just another great example of the OST being technically great in its complexity and variety, but completely forgettable after the credits start rolling.
Open that right there. And bam! We have our official Chef Boyardee ravioli. Open and delicious. Ready for meal. Wait, fuck.
And after doing all the recycled helicopter missions and trudging your way through these unnecessarily long roads back and forth around the map, Bush Rescue is finally ready to storm Boss Cass's evil boss base to finally wring his little fucking turkey neck out.
Oh my god, there he is.
You and your OC buddies are all riding on mechs, beating the shit out of everyone in your path. And fighting the same bosses with no additional changes, except that they're now even shorter to beat. You reach Cass's fuck basement, give your bae a little smooch, and it's time to face him one-on-one. Spamming the missile button for 3 phases till he gives up. This ain't a gag this time, I swear. It took me 6 hours to beat. 2 of those hours I spent fucking around doing nothing, and I spent another extra hour jacking off while having the window open. The game is criminally short, so much so that it makes my Angry Joe Puerto Rican blood boil. I was kinda shocked since I remember doing so much more before beating the game when I was a wee baby. But again, it might just be that I was also a wee bab that used to eat the controller itself rather than playing the game at all.
Each second. Almost ready.
Since I'm covering this aspect, I might as well bring up all the other faults that riddle the game. I talked earlier about all the repetitive missions. About a third way into Tide 2, the game just decides that you've had enough of these fun story missions, so you should go take care of all the other fucking side missions, whether you like it or not. Missions like driving around the map, delivering shit, saving these dumb hicks from evil ninjas almost 4 fucking times, and helicopter missions with your used asses that I mentioned earlier. I mean, all of these wouldn't really be a big issue with me if they didn't force me to do it in the end. Even though there isn't really a point to add these missions for padding, when even with all the time spent it still pads out to 3 fucking hours. Bosses in the game are also a disappointing mess. Now you'd think that boomerang based combat would be a great mechanic for experimenting with fights, but no. None of the 3 fights in total took advantage of the different boomerang types. No big arenas where you can swing around using your rope rangs to avoid attack and jump on platforms. No boss when you can manipulate their speed by freezing them with your ice boomerang. Not even one where you can just throw them at switches to trigger a trap to disable a boss or anything. One of the biggest examples for such a letdown is this boss you meet up halfway. This dude's made up of little robot spiders. which could be a great idea for it to morph into literally anything, but he just turns into the Yellow Devil from Mega Man and a ball. They sold this game for $60. The PC port itself is pretty surprising for a small studio, but even with all the 4K textures and totally necessary bloom effects, I ended up having to play on low settings due to some shitty optimization issues. And obviously I still encounter many frame drops and graphical glitches. I don't really want to nitpick too much though, because it's still a pretty decent port.
Our ravioli. Now, we must pour it into a saucepan. Come on. Come on.
Bush Rescue is a charming game with a lot of fun, unique ideas only found from that wonderful era of platformers that's unfortunately hindered by the slapped together structure. And I mean, the game was only developed in 2 years, which I mean they probably spent the first year developing the engine and the other extra year developing everything else that didn't involve it. Don't really know if it was good old EA rushing it to come out to compete against all the other platformers from that year, or just incompetence from the studio itself. Although now that I finished this game, I think I started developing an itch to revisit or at least try some new platformers again. Original TIE seems to fare about the same in terms of quality, and Chrome is working to porting over TIE 3 for the Steam, so I still have a bit of free time to look at something else. Maybe a platformer that's actually fun and good. Hey gamers, sorry the video took so goddamn long to be made. I wrote and recorded this back in January, but I just halfway stopped giving a shit about YouTube. Editing is probably the most... I'm falling asleep. Editing has probably been the most time consuming aspect. Trying to download all the clips at like 10 kilobits per second. It's fucking great. Hopefully the next stream of uploads will be quicker. You know what to expect if you've seen the upcoming videos. Join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, stay up to date, or just watch me retweet hentai. I don't know what to say, man. It's just at 6 in the morning. Only slept for 2 hours. I'm just happy this video is done.
See you later, babies.